All right, all right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're here for the next session. This is going to be a Diamond Sponsor session. A big thanks, as always, to InDigital for just simply everything. They've been with me since the beginning, and we've done a bunch of things together, and it is just an amazing company. Always feels like family. So thank you, InDigital, very, very much. Next speaker today is going to be Fabricio Velez, and he is the Director of Interoperability and Standards. And I said that right on the first try. That is a tongue twister, but he is going to be doing a session called Next Generation Emergency Services, NG9-1-1 and PSBN Convergence. My friend, take it away.
Thank you, Ricardo. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here for the first time, participate of this conference. I'm bringing to you a new topic that I have been leading in the industry for a couple of years, but I think now with I joined InDigital last August, and I think that this is one of the next steps that we have in all this evolution to next generation 911 and how we are now going to bring all that data from the citizens, voice, video, pictures, etc., to the emergency communication centers of the PSAP of the future. But now we have to push down that in real time to the first responders. So this topic is still very hot in the industry. Several companies, work groups in the industry are trying to address it. In addition to always, as we all know, we are still discussing about the funding for next generation 911 and what else we can do there, right? Anyway, let me go through a couple of slides. This is more introductory. This is more about discussing the use cases. In the past, I have been giving this presentation and going into the architecture and technical details, but I wanted to bring it a little bit, high level on discussing just the use case and why it's important in that we start looking at this, especially now that a lot of the states have moved to these. I would call it this transitional architecture of next generation 911, because NG911, we still have a few more things to do before we get there. And as you can see, you will see here is also based on the definitions. So what I'm calling it is next generation emergency services. So that idea is that end to end. So from the citizen, that we are calling, maybe we can take our devices and make a video call or send a picture, or maybe we have a CCTV camera that we are pulling data from a fire, anything, right? Now we have that at the ECC, and obviously there are going to be more tools that we have to use to be able to process that information and create the actionable intelligence that we can share with the first responders. So there is a lot there, right, behind this, but we need to establish that underlying end-to-end connectivity so that the citizen, the 911 dispatcher, and the first responder can share that information at least at the beginning of the 911 call, and then obviously we have the incident management. Anyway, so let's move forward here. So right now, obviously, we are moving out of this, but in the legacy E911, right? So we place a call, especially with the wireless devices, they have been taking over. The latest data is always 80 to 90% of the emergency calls coming from these smartphones, cellular devices, right? The wireless carriers are responsible to route that to the emergency services network. In the E911, we have a selective router, right? So in the traditional reception, decision, and dispatch, we have our call handling system, or the legacy CPE, and now we use dispatch, a dispatch console, to connect to the P25 radio system and talk to our first responders, dispatch police, firefighters, EMS, right? So dispatch always have the tool of the CAT. Now the CAT is obviously using one of the wireless carriers out there to connect a data connectivity to those devices in the vehicles, right? In the police cars, in the fire trucks. So, but what was important here is, and I will, it's just definitions, right? Circuit switch, right? So it's a dedicated channel, you know, that between the two endpoints of the network, right? So now this is where the selective router are legacy, right? We, as I discussed, we are now having 80% of the calls coming from the wireless broadband networks, but they are based on the packet switch technologies. So we call it IP, we call it packet switch, but it's really a more efficient utilization of the network resources, right? Because now we don't have a dedicated channel, that is being used all the time, but we send small packets, right? And basically they are disassembled at the origination point and reassembled at the destination point. And this is how pretty much we are communicating when we are doing even this conference. We are using IP technologies or packet switch technologies, right? But the point is that our wireless service is actually based on this technology. Therefore, it makes sense that in the next generation 911, we want to go to that technologies, right? So let me now provide a definition of the total conversation emergency services. This is actually a more of a European definition for the International Telecommunications Union, but I think it's very applicable, right? Here in the States, we have our standards, some we call it multimedia emergency services, but I like this definition because total conversation is that is a multimedia conversational services between two or more participants, right? And what does it mean is that I can do voice, video, and real-time text, right? And why is important for us? Because if I can send a picture, and there is a phrase, a picture can provide 1,000 words, right? I don't know if I say it correctly, but total conversation emergency services can provide more information than a regular voice call, supporting a more rapid, reliable, and efficient emergency response. So, and what is important is also that in order to enable or support total conversation emergency services, we require of an end-to-end IP-based emergency communications network. So what I'm trying to go with this definition is a lot of our focus, especially everybody who's in this conference, you have been focusing on, this next generation 911. How do I make sure that I take the call from that service provider, the originating service provider, and I deliver it to the 911 center, right? And this is where in digital, for instance, is helping some of the states achieve this in a reliable, secure, and way all the time. But if I now want to extend this to the first responders, I need this picture of this IP connectivity or packet switch connectivity, starting from that wireless carrier to the ECC or the next generation PSAP, and up to that network, which is called the Public Safety Broadband Network, that is now going to provide these additional wireless broadband services to the first responders. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions, let's hold to the end. We will have time for questions and answers. So in the next generation 911 network, as you can see, the vision is now we can provide total conversation, multimedia, emergency calls between citizens and telecommunicators or 911 dispatchers, right? So now you can see we have here voice, video, pictures. And today we have a lot of companies that are helping us to do that, but with a caveat is over the top, right? What we really want in the final vision is that I can do this directly with this device, right? That I make a voice call, and then after agreeing with the 911 dispatcher, now I establish the video call. But we do this instant seamless. We just, it's like for those of us that have an iPhone, I just press the FaceTime phone button, right? So we need to do that, and we are not there, right? Not because the technology is not available, but because we have many pieces in this network that are still legacy and are not allowing us to do that end to end yet, right? But we have to work towards that. And that's why we have to work with the wireless carriers. We have to work with the call handling systems. We will have to work with the public safety broadband networks so that we can make that a native video call or real-time text, right? But here I was positioning that we have a land mobile radio still, right? Even though we moved to next generation 911 network, we are so used to use the radio, right? And hey, why not? I mean, they are used to that. I mean, it has better coverage actually in buildings, right? But now we are moving to the public safety broadband networks. Example of this is FirstNet. Verizon have their Frontline. T-Mobile has Connecting Heroes. So everybody has some different service that is trying to provide these to the first responders. So what I want to say is, yes, NG911 represents that evolution of E911 from all IP-based emergency communications networks, utilizing packet switch technologies. And this is where I want just to make it very simple. What does that definition mean? It means that the public can request emergency assistance using a broader range of communication services. So it's not anymore just the traditional voice call. It's a video, it's a text, right? Or we have automatic emergency calls like coming from a fire alarm, a sensor, right? So, and I know that this is right. I mean, we talk about this, and there are these early adopters, or there are solutions out there. And one of the topics that we want this to happen right now, for instance, there is a lot of research and discussions about school safety, right? Where we want gunshot detection, and all of those things. So those are the non-human initiated alerts. But we still need some intervention, right? We will still need intervention from somebody who can validate that this is an emergency. And that's why, again, we have the connectivity, but we still will have more tools, more platforms there to help us create that actionable intelligence. The other thing that NG911 provides is, and it has been very important, the FCC is also mandating this, is this more accurate location for location-based routing, and now also even dispatchable location, which means that we also know the floor, right? There is a lot of work out there behind these. Again, technology is available, but you still need the tools, the maps, the 3D maps, and guess what, right? Somebody has to pay for that, right? Somebody has to fund that. Anyway, but that's another most important thing, is that getting that location so that we know where the emergency, the citizen is located, and we can dispatch the emergency responders to that location. So now my definition is, in a next generation emergency services network, and now I have the public safety broadband network. Why? Because now I can have that end-to-end multimedia communication between the citizen, the 911 dispatcher, and the first responders. So we give you an example, a use case. Maybe I call 911, right? I'm having maybe somebody's having a heart attack. I don't know, the person doesn't know CPR. So even though now 911 dispatchers are trained to provide these instructions over the phone, we can maybe agree, hey, can we establish a video call? So now you can do that, right? So we enable that video call to the citizen. But then maybe a few minutes later, we already have dispatched the EMS unit. We want to now put in a video conference that EMS unit, right? So that they can provide additional assistance. So in that case, the 911 dispatcher should be able to establish that video call to the EMS unit that is en route, and now have a three-way video conference call. So now the EMS that is actually providing information to the citizen. So that's just a very simple use case where that's where I need a public safety program network, because that's the one that can provide also that pictures, video to the first responders. And what is a public safety broadband network? It's a wireless broadband network used by first responders to communicate with each other and acquire information during emergencies, plan events, and day-to-day events. This is a definition that we have in one of the industry groups called ICERT. But again, there is a lot happening. FirstNet, there is you will hear the quality of service, priority preemption. Well, there is a lot behind this so that we can prioritize that call of a first responder over any other user, that is in that network or that site, etc. And now here, another important thing of NG911 is that once we have this complete picture, now we need to use applications that are capable of collecting, processing, and analyzing incident information to create actionable intelligence that can be shared with the first responder in the field. So, this is becoming more complex. I have to admit it, because it's not that the dispatcher is going to answer every video call or every text. So now we need additional tools. And one of the buzzword words right now in the industry is artificial intelligence and machine learning. So everybody's talking about it. And it's going to help us. But one of the things is that we have to train those models to help us. So you still have, it's going to help you, but I remember a few years ago somebody said that it might be that we need another position in the PSAP or the ECC of somebody who is now analyzing this data to confirm this that is a valid emergency and share it with the first responders, right? But anyway, not the point of going too deep in this particular discussion. Just wanted to provide you some ideas of what this means. So now the PSBN enables the real-time exchange of this actionable intelligence. NG911 enables the ECC or the next generation PSAP to have all these applications. We create the actionable intelligence, but I have to now share that with the first responders. And that provides this 360-degree situational awareness. And what we really want, somebody a few years ago asked me, what is, they were saying, what is modernizing public safety? There was a responsible devices and all of that. No, it's really that we have to shave more seconds so that we make it faster, more safer, more efficient. Every second is alive, right? So the idea of providing that 360-degree situational awareness is that we can reduce the response time. So now this is a way of looking at all of this in a holistic way. So NG911 enables, IoT devices, sensors, alarms, panic buttons, the video, the location, and that device that can do the voice, video. And the NG PSAP is actually there, the central nerve, right? It's handling data-rich communications from the NG911 and also using the PSBN to share that information. So as you can see, NG911 and the PSBNs are complementary because they're the pillars of the next generation emergency service. We need both, right, eventually. And again, I'm not discarding P25. P25 is going to be there, the radio, but in order to enable all these new services and new communications use cases, I need a PSBN. So how is going to look like? We have to think that there is going to be this future emergency response workflow. Now it can be a multimedia emergency call, it can be a fire alarm, it can be a panic button, right? And we are going to receive, process, and analyze that data. So we have to validate that this is an incident, classified. And this surveillance and predictive analytics, that's where the AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning comes into play. But I want, and obviously speed up, right? I need automated workflows. So, okay, this is happening. This is the next step. So that's why I was saying that there are going to be more applications that are going to help in the 911 center to help make these decisions faster. So that now we can dispatch the proper resources. We provide the location, the mapping, and the real-time actionable intelligence. So in the future, right, the PSAP is not just answering calls anymore and dispatching. It's really a common operating platform, right? It's this single pane of glass that is providing all information about the emergency, right? Whatever. I live in Louisville, Texas, and I know that this 911 center, they have drones, they have cameras in the highway. So you start pulling all that information so that you can share that in real time with first responders, emergency responders. And as you know better than me, right? We have about 6,000 pieces, right? But maybe just 8%, 10% of them are big ones that maybe they can have a separate call taker station and a separate dispatcher. But everybody else is one person doing both jobs, right? That's the rest. And that's where we need to bring these applications, these solutions that can be shared, as a service, and we use the terms of cloud, etc. But before we can do that, we need to establish this end-to-end connectivity. And finally, now we have the emergency response, with the PSBNs, mission critical service, public safety devices and applications, video, drones, etc. So as you can see from here, if one thing that you can take from this is how NG911 and PSBN play a pivotal role in the mission of safeguarding the citizens' well-being and protecting assets and critical systems by providing the foundation for a rapid, reliable, and more efficient emergency response. Well, one of the things, before I go there to the next one, I want to point out here, there is a lot, we have, yes, amazing how many technologies are coming, right? Everybody's helping us. There are many companies out there bringing solutions. There is a small startup providing now the video. We have another one that is very well established, started with the location, and then they move into providing additional data. But one of the key things here is that we need to work together on defining these new emergency response workflows. Why? Because I have an Apple Watch, right? And I know I have heard several times that right now in the 911 centers, most of the false emergency calls are coming from this device, right? Because of the voice. And especially, I think I saw the other day in LinkedIn, somebody was putting there that now that there is a ski season in Colorado, now you're getting more and more of this because people are falling. So I'm just using the example. It's great to have that capability in the Apple Watch, but we should have worked together on defining the triggers. How can we use it so that we don't create this additional work to the 911 center? Because we all know there is not enough people doing this very important job, right? So we have to be very careful about the technologies. The technologies are out there, but we need to make sure that we create the proper new operational processes or workflows, right? Operational protocols or workflows. So it's not just, hey, I have this, you can use it. It's really defining how it's going to be used and making sure that it helps in this job. So now in the last slide, what I have here is just an example of the relevant standards in the industry. So just wanted to point out, we have these mobile broadband networks. Actually, the wireless networks are the key to enable these next generation emergency services. We need them to be able to establish these multimedia emergency services. They have to be conformant to the NINA I3 standard so that they can provide the location or the initial location for the location-based routing and any supplemental emergency call data, right? The next generation emergency services networks, like in digital we are doing, we need to make sure we are working with in every state. There is a lot of legacy, right? But we are making sure that we have also following the standards. We are actively participating in the ICE, in this interoperability work that happened just a month ago. So we make sure we are participating in every effort to guarantee the interoperability and the validity of these standards so that we can provide these solutions to our customers, right? But most important is once we have the end state, right, we can provide these multimedia emergency services to the to the 911 centers. But now the 911 centers, they call it ECC or next generation PSAP, they have to be able to consume that multimedia code. They have to be able to process and analyze the new data to create the actionable intelligence, right? And now provide the dispatch and the incident management. So they also have to talk to these public safety broadband networks, right? Because they have to be that end-to-end flow, right? It's interesting. So we are working so much on making sure that there is an I3 standard, the call interface, all the way to the 911 center. Guess what? We also now need to make sure that this SIP, probably some of you that have the EMP or are studying this, the session initiation protocol, right? So we need to make sure that that is also there so that we can have now these multimedia emergency services between the 911 dispatchers and the first responders. Standards are out there, right? There are some standards, and there is a lot of work right now in the industry to how we use those standards. That's the most interesting part. We are trying to make sure that we implement them and that everybody implements it in a way that I can just plug and play. But right now we have a lot of work on this integration and testing, and this is causing a lot of delays sometimes in the deployments. But we are getting there. I think that at least the industry is getting together, and in my role, I'm participating in or representing actually in digital in most of these groups, and we are coming together. And there is a lot of work ahead of us, but we are getting there. So that, as you can see, is what we need, right, to enable this total conversation emergency communications. So we have voice, video, real time, and location information all the way. Finally, so point. I don't have this bullet point here, but I just want to go back to that point. I mean, we have a lot of technologies out there. I mean, we as a consumers, we are using voice, video, applications. I mean, we can do everything, right? But it's making sure that whenever we want to use the same applications or capabilities for emergency services, we are actually making sure that they are, creating workflows and protocols that help us provide that more efficient or more faster emergency response. So having said that, we have these NG9-1-1 and PSBN are the foundation of the next generation emergency services, right? So I would say that at the state level, now that you are working on these NG911 networks, getting there, now you need to make sure that how do you work with those PSBN providers so that you can enable this end-to-end flow of information. There are going to be many applications out there. Again, one of the buzzwords, artificial intelligence, machine learning. But what is the idea is that we want to facilitate the work of the 911 dispatchers, right? So that they can have tools that helps them provide this actionable intelligence that will enhance the first responders' incident management capabilities. And the PSBN, as I mentioned, we still have P25, we still have our radio, but we need PSBNs to enable that now, the sharing of a picture, of a video, more information to the first responders, that situational awareness. And finally, once they work together, they will protect all the citizens, the critical access, and it's important for preserving lives and enhancing emergency response. So last point, this is the vision, right? But we have to work together. So we need to make sure that the devices, an Apple Watch, an iPhone, Samsung device, they support these capabilities, right? We have the same in the wireless broadband networks, the NG911 networks, NG PSAPs, and also those public safety applications. So as you can see, it's a complete ecosystem, and there is not just one tool, right? It's not just I3 standard, for instance. No, it's a complete ecosystem that we have to really take into consideration to enable these new use cases that are going to help us do this very important job of saving lives. Well, I don't have anything else. I'm ready for any questions from the team, the people in this session.
You so very much once again for all of this, putting it together and having it there, just like Angie said over here, great information. Thanks for making it easier to understand. And I think that's one of the things as well, is for a lot of folks, especially as you mentioned too, those who are studying for their EMP and everything else, a lot of this stuff is in there, and it's good to be able to understand this because there's so much to it. And for myself, when I myself was first working within digital, I remember they gave me those diagrams, and I looked at them, and I said, "Okay, what am I looking at?" And so I had to sit down with a few people, and they were telling me about it, and they made it so that I could understand it even more so. And then I started teaching it as well, which I never thought was something I would ever do. And I'm throwing diagrams up on the screen, and I remember a lot of the dispatchers and call takers, but as well as supervisors and directors and such. They're looking at me at first, but by the time we were at the end, they're like, "Oh, I get it now." And this stuff is so important to understand. So what I want to do is, so there's no questions in the actual QA, but I have a couple of questions that I want to ask you specifically. And for those who are watching and everything as well, I mean, you can see in the comments, everyone thanking you and everything for it, making it so much more easy to understand. But for you, I want to ask this first. How has the 911 technology changed from the time that you started in 911 till now?
No, it's amazing. I would say I'm relatively new because I was in Nokia back in 2015, where and I was working in the public safety segment where we were after all these public safety broadband networks, and there was a lot of work behind that. And I was told, hey, Fabricio, can you take a look at what we can do with next generation 911, right? So what I would say is that it's interesting because we have evolved a lot. We have so many um, new tools available, right? So I can see that there are different. I will call it this way. I will distinguish that there are emergency communication districts that are doing all the cool stuff, right? But and that's great because they serve us as an example, right, as leaders. But we still don't have that to the everyday, everybody else. Like I live here in a suburb of Dallas Fort Worth, right? And it's incredible here. Sometimes I would like to take a picture of that car that is running in the street,
Mhm.
but and send it in real time, right? Because yeah, I can send it later, share it with go to the police and call them and maybe share it, but it's when in that moment, right, when it happens. So I answering your question, I think that we have make a lot of progress, but we still are missing that the everyday citizen can really use it, and especially um, my kids, my son and my daughter, they're 20 and 18 years old. Those guys, they only communicate with WhatsApp. I mean, I always ask them, why don't you make a phone call? Don't phone with your friends, please. But that's how they communicate now. So
Right.
it makes sense that you want also the 911 to be able to communicate with them the way that they know, right? So there is a lot,
Mhm.
but a lot of devices, a lot. It's just that putting it together is we are still there. We're still not there, right?
Right.
That's my at least my personal opinion.
Yeah, and for myself, and probably a lot of people who are in the audience as well, starting out a long time ago. So I started in public safety in 2001. So thinking about the technology from then to now is just for anyone who is a Spaceballs fan, they've gone plaid. Like that's how crazy it's gotten, but in a good way, for good reason. Because I remember where there was it was really hard for certain things, and I feel like in a way, because the technology wasn't as modern, I guess, as a lot of things are now, at least back then during the time that I'm thinking, more so like around 2011, 2012 even, it was it was a hit to mental health and wellness a little bit, because I remember taking phone calls where you couldn't find someone, and if you couldn't find someone and you lost the call and you couldn't like, that kind of stuck with you. I know it would stick with me, and that really hurt, because you don't know what happened to that person. But now technology is a lot better. You can find people a lot easier, not like the way it is on TV and movies. Don't No, it's not like that. But even just in general, the way everything is, NG, it's amazing that it has come this far and that it continues to go this far. So another question for you is why is it so important for especially those who are here right now and those who will come up, but even in general in everyday life, for those who are in public safety, why is it important for them to understand how all of this works and what is available to them?
Oh, that's a very good question, Ricardo. I think there is. I don't think that a lot of people, especially the people that we are in working even in technology sometimes, right behind doors, in this, we understand how important is your job, right? I remember in my early career, one-on-one is that you need to understand what is the problem, the pain point that you are trying to solve with the technology. And right now we have a lot of technology, but I think people don't really know that the companies behind the technology, most of them, they don't have people that understand how you guys are going to use it, right? So it's a gap. It's a gap because there is just very few people that maybe have done the job of 911 dispatcher, and then they move in technology so that they can help us to translate all of this, right?
Hmm.
So since we have the gap, then maybe we do the other thing is try to make it simple so that the people that is working there understand these technologies, or at least can able to provide us the feedback that we need to create better use cases and better solutions. So for me, that is important. That the end user, which is the 911 dispatchers, the 911 community, can at least have a high level understanding of all of this so that they can provide us the right feedback. Because otherwise, hey, we see it there. I mean, everybody can solve everything, right? Like in the movies.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand that completely, bridging that gap, that's it makes so much sense because if you guys don't know what is needed, then you're just gonna do what you're doing, right? But
Yeah.
for everyone to be able to understand it, like you said as well, in a high level environment and such, um, you can bridge that gap and bring each other together and make the system work for everyone, and it be more efficient and just all of it goes well. Now, I do love that you touched on AI a little bit because I have a question, and just in your opinion, and anybody here in the comments as well, if you want to comment too. There are some places out there, there are some centers that are already testing with AI for non-emergency calls and everything. But here's the question though: Do you feel like eventually one day that AI will have that human element that's needed for 911, just for those non-emergency ones, not for the rest of the stuff, that I wouldn't really trust or anything, but I don't know, I was just curious, like, because the human element is what's needed in 911.
Yeah, so I'm not an expert in artificial intelligence. I have been doing a little bit of reading, and it has been there for at least 10 years already, right? So there is a test that they do to make sure if all these applications built on AI can really simulate or emulate a human, you know, and they're still not passing, right? They don't pass it. Even today, they haven't passed it.
Hmm.
I think there is a higher probability that they can help in those non-emergency, as long as we have enough data to train. Because that's the caveat. They work really good as long as you have millions of data to train the model,
Very true.
right? If we provide not good enough data, then the model is going to be very poor. So it's only going to be it's very dependent on having real good data to train the model. Then maybe yes, the answer will be yes. but that who so now you need to feed it, to provide the right input, and that's also a lot of work that requires a human intervention anyway.
Right. Yeah. Either way, you need
Yeah,
us.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Years and years and years from now, maybe for some of those non-emergency calls, but otherwise, man, no. Give me a human any day. Any day. That's what it's needed. I will say this really quick as we're wrapping up this session here, which has been phenomenal to have you here and share this information. And like Angie is saying here as well in the comments, having the proper vocabulary helps us articulate to the people who have to fix it when it isn't working. So again, there's that bridging the gap, but learning on both ends, right? To bridge that gap so that we can all understand each other. But I want to say this really quick, which is kind of funny as a reference to AI. My son and I were, I think it was, I don't know, one of the AI tools. We asked it a question. I think I told you this already, but we had asked it a question about the movie The Terminator, and if with the way technology is now, if something like that could happen, is it probable for something like that to happen? And the response almost instantly was, "That's just a movie. It's just a story." Maybe years from now, it'll be advanced enough to do something like that, but at the end of what, the AI sent back to me was, "But as long as humans are good to the technology, you have nothing to worry about." And I started laughing, and I looked at my son, and I said, "That sounded like a threat."
Yeah,
And yeah, and I responded back saying, "That sounds like a threat." And it immediately responded back to me saying, "I'm so sorry. It's not what I meant. All I was trying to say is that," and then it repeated that last part again. I was like, "Okay, I'm done with this thing." I was like, "Heck no." Like that's kind of scary.
no, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, no. It's going to be very interesting. I mean, it's the Chat GPT. I started using it. Obviously, my native language is Spanish. I have been here 25 years, but I still want to. Hey, can you check this just to make sure the grammar is correct? So I'm using it, and I like
yeah.
that because it's helping me in a
Mhm.
way, right? But um, but yeah, I mean, but it's true. Like it will provide you like some terms that at you still have to review it at the end of the day.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You cannot just rely 100%. But like I said, from what I was reading and studying, as long as you provide enough data to train the model, then it will get better and better and better. But creating that data and to train, that's what takes time.
Right.
And
Yeah,
that is
for sure.
a human component anyway.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see a lot of a lot of the centers that are using it, right now, those early adopters, how things are working and how they're putting everything out there, because it's the same thing with remote dispatching, working from home and having the technology to be able to do that as well. I mean, it's something that we saw during the pandemic and everything. Some places were doing things like that, and I know in digital, they had a spot where they had someone that was working, just testing a lot of the stuff, but also to do all of that stuff, the stuff that you spoke about today is learning all of those things at a high level, at the main level, whichever, and just having some of that knowledge to be able to go along with it.
Exactly. Oh, thank you.
uh, So, Lori over here says there is AI translation for foreign language now, also AI radio transcription. See, there's a lot of stuff. That is very interesting. And Roxy there, she's a director out of Kansas, so she's looking that as well. This is what I like about this too. We can have conversations like this, and then we've got the live chat going on where people can, continue to connect and beyond, network beyond this event and everything. So this has been really good. And thank you so very much, Fabricio, for being here, talking on this topic, and just for doing what you do, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ricardo, for inviting me.
All right. So, for everyone who is here, thank you all for being here in this session. And we are going to be switching over to the next one here in about 15 or so minutes, 15, 20 minutes. And the next session coming up is going to be our keynote speaker. And it's going to be Joe Serio, who's the founder of the 360-degree Dispatcher. And he's going to be doing a session called 3 Superpowers, Guaranteed Success to Work and Home. So we will see you all here in just a moment in the next one.